So, I felt kind of sad when I basically was doing tier lists for Renegade, because there's basically only two here. And even though I did go and rate the one for the Renegade weapons, there's none for vehicles or missions or anything like that. And I would basically do this map tier list one as well, but it's been a while. I'm not sure I can basically remember what these basically all are. I remember playing walls and city under, because that's basically what the tutorial map basically is. If you don't play on multiplayer and stuff like that. I think maybe islands and hourglass, but the others I didn't really get to play a lot, so I felt it was very hard to basically judge this one, so I just sort of avoided it. But you know what? I decide I want to basically fix that a little bit, so I made one for vehicles because that's just simple enough to basically do. And I figured for this one, we'll go to Frank Apex's site here. Original video game soundtracks for C&C Renegade. We'll listen to some stuff like the rare tracks down here. And we're just going to rate the vehicles of C&C Renegade. Now, I'm going to note that this list here I basically made. It's basically excluding those vehicles that you don't really get to use or, shall we say, basically appropriately build without special modifications to the game. There are other vehicles basically in Renegade you can actually play with, such as the recon bike, but you actually have to enable special features in order to get those vehicles. So I decided not to include them. But there's still quite a few vehicles basically great in the original Command Car Renegade, so why not? Let's go with it. Alright, so starting off with the vehicles here, we basically have the not buggy. And it's basically, I guess, the cheapest vehicle to basically get from C&C Renegade, and it does the job pretty well. The idea of the buggy is that it's basically a cheap little two-seater that can basically either transport you and a friend to a new destination or do some light infantry harassment. I really like the not buggy because it's actually fairly mobile and capable of dodging rounds a little bit. While not being as durable as say the Humvee, it doesn't really need to be, so it's definitely an excellent unit for what you can basically do with it. The Humvee is comparable, I guess, to the buggy. I guess it moves in a similar speed and has a little more armor, but because it costs a little bit more to build this over the buggy, it does have that sort of drawback going for it. These vehicles aren't really made for combat, so you basically want have a cheap vehicle to basically get you from A to B, so that's what they're basically for. Comparing them to the NOD APC and the GDI APC, these vehicles are basically made to transport multiple units from one destination to the other. I believe they both cost 500 credits basically to build, but essentially they do the same thing. Basically you can throw I believe up to 5 characters basically in them. 2 can basically man the guns, and you basically have the back seat for the rest of the crew. They can basically drop out all at once to sort of raid an enemy base. So again, they're excellent units. I think I'd probably throw like both these basically in the laudable category, just for a simple reason that you could have a bunch of well kitted out infantry popping out of the vehicle to sort of do stuff, but you might be sort of suited having a couple of guys basically in a buggy sort of do that sort of thing, and have other guys basically in our vehicles so you can basically great range of the fray. Or you basically use infantry rushes over terrain that the vehicles can't go and stuff like that. So they're not as good. I don't think it's say a buggy, but they're still pretty good. All right, we got ourselves the NOD artillery and the GDI MLRS rather. Did I say that right? Mobile Rocket Launcher System, MRLS. There we go. Alright, well anyways, these units basically act sort of the same. They're essentially made to sort of blast structures and stuff at long range where, that's basically the idea. Basically blast stuff at extreme range to run it destroyed. They're very good against infantry because, like, they have very huge blast radius, though they do fairly good damage against vehicles as well. I've seen, like, matches basically devolve into, like, basically, like, artillery blasts, like, fest, where basically you have, like, a bunch of engineers behind, like, artillery and MRS, just, like, pounding each other. Because they really can't, like, do anything, like, the enemies, because these are, like, such powerful, like, vehicles that they use. You can use, like, other vehicles as well, but I mean, these ones, like, can really, like, pump up, like, a lot of damage if you, like, use them, so they're awesome for it. I think I rate, like, both of these be, like, fantastic, though I do prefer, I think, the artillery basically over to, like, MRLS for, like, how it basically works, so all for that basically fantastic. Alright, next we basically have the tanks. Now, note that basically the medium tank for the GDI is basically very similar to, like, the C&C version, like, the original DOM one, but there's basically a redesign of the NOD light tank that makes it look a lot more sleeker and a lot more deadly basically than the the original, like, version you basically see in, like, Command & Conquer Dawn's, like, set basically, like, tanks and such. It's a lot lower to the ground, and even though it's, like, a little bit weaker than the medium tank, it's still very, very durable and, like, capable of, like, doing a lot of stuff. Although it's also a lot cheaper to build this, by the way, so if you want to basically get a tank up real quick, then that's an easy way of basically doing it. So excellent for what basically has to offer. Actually, I probably put these basically down to, like, mediocre, these tanks, just for a simple reason that, like, the rocket launcher and the artillery are just, like, so much better to sort of use. But I digress. They're still fairly competent for what they basically do. All the vehicles in the Renegade are, like, just awesome for what they can basically do, so there's not a whole lot complaining about them for the most part. Alright, so the flame tank, the MAF tank, and the stealth tank. These are basically sort of like, the standout units that basically don't have, like, sort of like a mirror match to them, like all the other ones basically in, like, the game basically do. The flame tanks basically are, like, close range, sort of like, base destroying unit, and even, like, other stuff as well. It's probably the best, like, base destroyer to flame tank, but it's, like, has to basically get close. And you may not want to do that when there's, like, so much range basically going on sometimes in this game. Like, you can definitely, like, take out base defenses quite easily with, like, say, a flame tank, but it's also a sort of, like, vehicle that I find, like, it sort of lacks, like, the sort of, like, punch that, like, say, other, like, vehicles basically have. That basically had, like, in the original, like, Dawn. It's not a bad vehicle, but I think, like, for what it's basically worth, it's a little bit deficient. Unfortunately, just because of, like, how, like, the maps basically can sometimes be constructed. I remember this track. I'm pretty sure Renegade Jungle is basically, like, the opening track for, like, getting into the game, but whatever. Alright, so next is basically the GDI MAF tank. And very similar to, like, the flame tank, the MAF tank basically has some deficiencies to it. It's basically, like, the most expensive tank in the game, but compared to, like, all the other, like, vehicles you can basically build, I find it's basically sort of, like, a terrible expenditure to sort of get. You'd be better off, like, having, like, a medium tank, which is basically cheaper and won't, like, give the points to, like, the enemy for, like, being hit. And basically it takes a lot to, like, repair, like, the MAF tank as well. Really, these, like, these are both fairly deficient, even though they are, like, endgame units. You can do a lot of damage with, like, the Renegade's, like, MAF tank, but it just doesn't have, like, the power, like, you expect, like, such a powerful unit to basically have. And then there's the stealth tank. Now, I'll note that stealth tanks basically in the original Tiberian Dawn were kind of useless in many people's eyes, but in this game, these things are fantastic. They're basically sort of like the, the flame tank, and that they're very, very, very good at, like, base destruction and stuff like that, but they're also able to sort of stealth around, and they have a little bit of range to them as well, so they're overall just a fantastic unit to basically, like, make use of sometimes. Now, they don't have, like, multiple seats on them, I think. All the other vehicles basically here, I think, are capable of, like, seating, like, 2 or more, like, participants in them, but the stealth tank basically can only have, like, 1 person in them. But even so, it's still a powerful unit to sort of use, so I'm quite happy with it. Alright, so that's basically all the vehicles basically in, like, Renegade. And I'll note basically as well, of these vehicles here, I believe you can basically play with the buggy, the Humvee, the light tank, the medium tank, and the MAV tank basically in single player, so throw it out there. All the other vehicles basically here, you can only play multiplayer, and you know, they're still pretty powerful, but you know, it's just worth knowing that, I guess. The vehicles right here, the aircraft. Now, it's worth knowing that basically for like the aircraft, not only are they basically one of the rare vehicles basically see in multiplayer, there's only a few maps basically you can like, you know, only like build them on, so that sort of like mitigates your use. Basically going back to the maps here, just sort of like, you know, point out there. Basically the maps that say fly here, like walls fly, cities fly, and glacier fly, those are the only maps you can basically have aircraft on in the original like, you know, Renegade maps here. And of these maps, I think glacier is like, you know, kind of bad for like aircraft. Walls is like okay, and like, you know, cities like is okay as well, but it's just not great for like aircraft overall to resolve it, so it's very, very hard to basically play them. And even if you basically play them, they, you know, they like suffer a lot from like, you know, having like open like, you know, fields of like fire that basically can be fired upon for like infantry, and taken down quite easily as well. But you can make use of them quite well in some situations, so the Orca, definitely like, you know, not bad, like, you know, piece of like hardware. The thing about the aircraft is they can usually sort of like do like a quick base rush from the air sometimes, so they have their purposes, I guess, so let's say they're mediocre. Now, another by the way about the aircraft in this game, both the Orca and the Apache basically move at the same speed, and they basically have the same arms you can basically use. The Orca basically has access to both like, you know, a Gatling gun as well as like missiles, while the Apache also has access to like a Gatling gun and missiles. And essentially you can basically alternate between the two to sort of like, you know, damage like buildings or units and stuff like that as you wish, which is quite nice. I remember this like track basically in the game, by the way. You know, this might be a twofer, just like, you know, tier list. I might actually go through like, you know, quickly just do this one just for the hell of it, but whatever. Alright, so the transport helicopters. Now, another transport helicopters can be pretty useful for like getting like, you know, infantry and stuff to like, you know, where you basically need to go. And they sort of like act basically like you know, the buggy or like, you know, the APCs, and like, you know, doing like base rushes and stuff like that. In many ways, they're also like, you know, they're laudable, so I feel for like this is for, you know, right now. So this is my sort of like tier ranking based on the vehicles in this game. So we're just gonna quickly save this one, I guess. So let's go with save and download. And of course, I basically forgot to like, you know, my stuff here. So let's just go. Grab your stuff right here. So. I feel I should be putting plays basically on all this stuff, but whatever. Or let's put this right here. That's basically a quick distinction here to note, by the way. It's basically what the special, you know, there's special vehicles actually play with in like Renegade. And now it's basically up here. Let's just go like, you know, quickly just show those off, I guess. So C&C Renegade vehicles. So note that the wiki basically like, you know, for Command & Conquer here, it states that basically just like, you know, several vehicles you can like, you know, play with here. So There's basically like, say for like the GDI side is like a pickup truck. There's like a sedan, and for not basically there's also some like special vehicles as well, such as like the Chameleon, SSM launcher, cargo truck, and of course the recon bike. And these are basically like vehicles you could play with if you want to, but they're like, sort of like special vehicles that like they can be built, but I mean you have to basically enable special properties for them. Oh, to note them as well, the recon bike's basically like, honestly a staple from like the Titanium Bond, but it wasn't included because it sort of imbalances like the game a little bit because they're super fast, these guys, and they do a lot of damage as well, so they weren't included, I guess, for that reason. So yeah, basically like you can do like hit and run attacks that can like, quickly lock on, do a whole lot of damage to like, armored vehicles and stuff like that. They have low health and armor, but even still, they do a lot of damage, so yeah. Alright, well, that took like 16 minutes, so yeah, let's just like quickly go through the Renegade maps here and just get this out of the way, I guess. So, I'll note that basically in like, multiplayer for like, Renegade, there's basically multiple maps you can basically play with. There's basically like, city and city flies, but you're basically like, alternative maps if you want to have like flying aircraft or not. There's basically like under, which is basically like, standard like map you can actually play with. And actually, let's just go quickly through here and try and like, do my bearings basically on these maps here a little bit, so. We can go in here. So basically like all these maps basically have like different things going for them. I'll note that basically under is basically the first map you're basically going to play with. And basically like, C&C under is like the standard one right here. It's basically a snowy background. Basically both the the two like bases are guarded by like base defenses. They basically have like a sort of like shield against each other, so they're pretty cool for that. So let's just go here. Under is basically like a very classical map that you can like sort of play around with. It's like nothing really special about it, so we'll throw that one B tier, I think. Alright, the next one I basically want to rate I think is Hourglass, because Hourglass is basically a map that I find usually devolves into like, basically a huge slugfest most of the time. And usually you don't see a whole lot of winning as opposed to like just like, battling out like, long range, so to speak. This one I think I'm going to throw into D class because it's just like, it could be so much better than like the Hourglass map, so let's see what it basically says here. So Hourglass, basically it's like a desert canyon. The feel of this map is basically just like a giant hill that you can basically sort of like, go over. But when you basically crease this hill, you basically get like, onslaught by like, the enemy fire. There's also a couple of paths you basically go around, which is sized with vehicles as well, but it's basically just like a map that like, could be so much better, so yeah. Let's probably actually click on these actually see what they basically say about them, so yeah, an oval in shape with bases the far points of the oval. Vehicles can also drive over to the top of the hill. The map has base defenses and advanced guard tower for GDI and 2 turrets. And obviously the light nod. Each base gets an infantry producing building, a vehicle producing building, a power plant, a finery. The different fields share, but each harvester works within range of space defenses. So yeah, basically the different fields basically share, but whatever. That's something actually, else to know as well, by the way. Basically down the middle is like the different field, so it's very hard to go through the middle of the map because there's basically different field there, but because like the base defense is basically guarded so well, and because like vehicles can like go up and over there, it's basically where all the combat basically takes place. Under basically like 2 bases which are defended by like their stuff. They're basically in like sort of like caves basically, so shall we say. The different fields basically shared again. So basically like the harvesters basically come at opposite ends of the field, so there's that. Now what you're gonna do basically at this point here. These are all the rare tracks basically played here for like Renegade. Is this gonna stop? It's gonna stop. So, well, let's go up to Command and Conquer then. Good little Command and Conquer. Alright, what maps basically have I played here before? So I will note that I have like played on both like walls and city quite a bit, so we'll go over them next, I guess. So city's basically right here. Basically it's got flying like added into it if you like go with like the the flying like one. And then there's like walls, which is basically like, you know, over here as well. Alright, so the two different maps are very similar to these ones. Basically, there's like a giant highway where, like, you know, you basically like, you know, can take to sort of get to each other's bases, or you can basically go on, like, you know, the ground as well. There's basically the ability to like fly over if you want to as well, if like you have like the, you know, stuff going on in the city. And you also both have like base defense as well to sort of like, you know, defend themselves with. So it's very easy to sort of take those out at range, so they're not really that great. So yeah, before tactics, the player can take over the you know, pass, the underpass, the side passages, or even a footpath. So lots of weaknesses, lots of like stuff to basically play around with here. I actually really like City basically for what it basically offers, so I think this is actually one of the better maps to play with, especially if you play with like the, you know, the flying stuff. So I'm gonna say that City flies basically like the S tier one here, and you know, City is still pretty good, like, you know, A tier, so just throw it right there. Now, walls is sort of like interesting because basically there's like two giant, like, you know, bases that are sort of like, you know, fenced off to each other. Basically there's like gates you have to go through to sort of get to each other's bases. But you can also have like a, you know, the ability to sort of fly over if you want to as well, which is where, like, you know, transfer helicopters can be like used to, like, you know, do like sort of like a, you know, rapid assault, so to speak, of like infantry and such. The key thing about this map, by the way, is that there's like a giant, like, you know, hill basically in the middle, and it's very possible to have sort of like a sniper fest if you go on, like, if you're not careful. So a very interesting, like, sort of map, I guess you could say. I don't want to say that, like, you know, walls is all that great, really, to be honest, because I find that, like, on, like, say, like, City doesn't really have, like, the same sort of perform, like, ability space they sort of do, but it's not bad either, and it's like a flying map, so it's like, you know, got that going for us. So let's just throw it right here, and I think I'll say walls is basically just like, you know, an average map basically, because it does have like a sort of tendency to evolve into like a sniper fest. You know, I'm gonna have to throw it down to C actually, so let's throw it right there. Alright, so the other ones I'm not really as familiar with, though I know at least one of them I have played quite a bit, so let's see what we can basically find here. Islands. I think Islands is one I've actually played before, by the way. Maybe.
I've got a present for you.
So let's just see here. Yeah, I think Islands is actually one I've actually played, by the way. So we'll go off for this one next. So Islands is a U-shaped map with bases at the arm's end of the U. There's an underwater tunnels connecting to the arms of the U that the infantry can duke it out in. Vehicles can traverse to the bottom side of the U and get to the other bases. The Tyrian fields are right next to the fires in the map, making a battle of high-class characters and vehicles. The map has no base defenses, each base has barracks, a vehicle, production facility, and refinery. Now, this is a very interesting map, by the way, because if I recall correctly, it's very possible that you can actually like blow up, like, you know, one of the enemy refineries, or like, you know, our buildings basically from the get-go from the other guy's base. So it does have basically a bit of a flaw in it. If I'm recalling this like map like correctly, it might be another one. I'll have to check out here a little bit. But yeah, the thing about, like, you know, this one here, and I'm pretty sure it's basically that one right there. It basically has sort of like, you know, glitch where, like, you know, it's possible to sort of like blow up one of the enemy's buildings without, like, you know, leaving your own base with like rockets and stuff like that. So you have like sort of like a bit of like you know, abuse in that sort of regard. So it's a nice idea for a map, but it basically suffers a little bit for that reason. So I think I'll say Islands is probably another like D-tier map, and it's right there. And that's something I know about. There's gonna be a lot of like D-tier maps, unfortunately, for like this game, because some of them are like good, like say City and Walls, but you know, others are like, not as good. I find, unfortunately, because they just like aren't balanced basically enough for it. So let's see. We got Canyon, Complex, Field, Glacier, Mesa, and Volcano left. Alright, well, let's go for Glacier next. I think I have played on Glacier because it's an air map, so it's kind of hard to sort of forget it, but whatever. So yeah, this is basically an incomplete map, by the way. I didn't really get to play this one as much because it sort of came in like, a little bit later than like the other maps, but you know, it's interesting nonetheless. So Glacier was originally designed by Westwood's T. Cheng-Yo, but was not completed in time for initial release, retail release. With help from Mike Emerson and Chris Ruberier, C&C Den member Aircraft Killer was able to recreate the map and release Glacier as a customly made community map on September 25, 2002. It was then added in as an official map in patch 1.035. Now, this is actually worth knowing, by the way. I actually played Renegade back in 2002, but even then, this game map was basically not really added in right away because the patch was not released just yet. So it's basically something I know, but it's a really cool map, this one, but it wasn't really complete at the time of the release of the game, so there's that to keep in mind. But anyhow, Glacier is a large map featuring buildings that are not featured in any other official multiplayer map, such as a repair facility, guard tower, and cannon placements. It's a green field shared between the two teams. So yes, note that's basically guard towers basically on this one. And these are actually actual guard towers, from the original game. Basically it's got the Vulcan turret that basically shoots out and stuff. So basically as opposed to the other maps that basically have say nods obelisks basically have 2 turrets next to it. This one actually has the GI actually having their own base defenses, which is kind of cool. By the way, this actually functions after Power Punch Destroy as well, so it's got that feature as well for it. And basically it's anti-infantry defense, so that too as well. What to say about Glacier? So, one notable bug of a Glacier map is the player places a mine outside of a building, it will seem to disappear. The mine ends up teleporting near a dot base at the end of the GI tunnel. From there, they can be disarmed. So, some issues basically bugs and stuff like that, as we expect from one of these maps. Now, I know that Glacier was kind of interesting because aircraft could be used on it, but they were basically kind of hard to use for the tunnels and glaciers and stuff like that. They basically had to take a sort of weird route to basically get to the enemy's base as opposed to just flying over everything. So that was something to basically note about it. It's not it was basically bad or anything. It's just it was very different and distinct. So you can basically find aircraft that are not as useful. But it did have a lot of interesting features basically going on under the hood. So it wasn't a bad map either. I just don't have a whole lot of experience basically playing it. I have a little bit of experience I basically do have playing it. So something else basically back in the day that when you basically play Renegade, in the multiplayer mode, basically the servers that were basically running at that time, they basically mostly use the original maps and not new ones and stuff like that because that's basically how the servers are basically set up. What's to say about Glacier? I'm gonna basically throw Glacier down here in B because it basically was sort of added in after and it basically had some issues with it, but there's also a fly map and that's didn't give a bonus basically for that, so let's just put up the A for it. Well, you know what? I'm gonna throw this basically down because using the flyers were a little bit confusing and stuff like that, so yeah, let's basically throw this down to B tier for this one, because why not? Alright, Canyon, Complex, Field, Mesa, and Volcano. Let's see if I can basically remember what these ones are all about. I have basically played all these maps, by the way. It's just, some I haven't played as much as the other ones, so there's that. So Canyon here. Complex. Field. We got Mesa. And Volcano. Alright, so Canyon is basically in our U-shaped map with bases on the end of them, I guess. So yeah, but bases in the arms of the U. There are tunnels connecting the arms of the U that infantry can duke it out in. Vehicles can traverse the bottom of the U to get to your base, and the terrain is inside the U-shape in the middle of the map. This map has noted base defenses. Each base gets an infantry boosting building, a vehicle boosting building, and a refiner as well. Note, some servers run a server-side mod which gives not 2 turrets and 2 guard towers. So, let me know about this one. Interesting, this map doesn't have any power plants on it. Alright, I'm gonna basically say I actually probably didn't play Canyon basically back in the day, so this is actually probably a very new map to me. So let's have a look at this picture here. Interesting. I do like the idea of basically having a sort of underground route for people to sort of duke it out in when infantry basically sort of go up over top, I guess. That does sound actually kind of cool. But the thing is, I don't have a lot of knowledge basically what this map is basically all about as well, so And we could have like other issues like, you know, being able to snipe at the other guy's building if you want to as well. So I'm gonna guess it probably isn't really an issue because, you know, it looks like basically have the vehicles like, you know, constructions at least a little bit away from each other. With like some like, you know, protection to them. KS looks like it probably could be decent at least, so I'll throw it out basically right there. Alright, Complex. So, Complex is an oval in shape, with bases the far points of the oval, so very similar to Hourglass. A small mesa is between the bases, and lots of tunnels underneath the mesa for infantry. There are roads through the cannons around the sides of the mesa, and vehicles can drive over the top as well. The map has no base defenses, so unlike basically Hourglass in that regard. The terrain fields are right next to the refineries, making it a high credit map. Each base gets an infantry boosted building, a vehicle boosted building, and a fire as well. So, this sounds like another map I basically didn't play a whole lot, but you know, it's very similar to sort of Hourglass in a way. Yeah, this basically just like Hourglass, except with like base defenses in it. You know, it probably makes it a lot better, this map, than like, you know, Hourglass. There's just like a reason that like, you know, it won't devolve into like a huge like, you know, slug-up fest, so to speak. I think this one I can actually rate a little bit higher than like Hourglass with all that, so I'll put that one basically up to like, you know, A, I think, because that's where it deserves to probably be. Alright, Field. So Field is a nighttime map, with tunnels connecting the two bases for infantry battles, and wide open field complete with waterfall and recursive farmhouses in the field. The level is about as balanced a map as you can get. 100 vehicles harvesters can keep their finances low, and then organize a frontal attack to overrun base defenses. Although be sure to keep an eye out on the back tunnels, a quick strike group of 3 or 4 infantry can spell disaster. Alright, so this map is basically like, you know, a nighttime map. Oh yeah, this looks like you know, a map I actually played before. So basically it's like a back door as well as like, you know, front door, so it's kind of like under, but probably with like, you know, the infantry being like a little bit more, you know, useful. I found like, you know, in under, by the way, that the like base defense is basically eradicate the infantry, so you can't really use it to like, you know, devastate stuff, but this might be a little bit better for it. I don't know where the back tunnels basically are, by the way, is a thing though. Basically in under, the like back tunnels are like, you know, up here, okay, go down here to get down to like the base, and you be zapped by like the infantry. I'm not sure if that's basically the case here, if like there's a basically nerve type basically, but you know. Definitely looks to be like a fairly decent map, this one right here, so that's probably gonna be an S-class map right there, so this one right there. Alright, Mesa and Volcano. So, Mesa is a multiplayer map in Renegade. Mesa is a map where you want to pound your opponent's harvester to keep finances low while Horus has a deliberate and careful strike on their base. Often it's easy to get the power plant first, which will take their base defenses offline. Then it is to go for base defenses themselves. Alright, so what's this map look like right here? So basically got a sort of back loop basically around to the base, you know, the base defense as well. And there's like the power plant right there, power plant right there. There's the obelisk right there, by the way, and the guard tower right there, I guess. So so basically, like, you know, two fronts basically to sort of worry about for attacking the base as well as like, you know, attacking their base. I think the GI power plant here is a little bit like, you know, easier, like, you know, harder to sort of like, you know, get to because the advanced guard tower is probably going to gun you down, but oh well, it's not terrible. I think actually I've played this map before, by the way. I think vehicles might have a difficult time like going through like some of these areas, but you know, you can basically get around to like the backs here if you want to as well. That's the thing, right? I haven't played a lot of these maps. It's like can't remember like a lot of them as, you know, well as the other ones. So there's that to keep in mind. Let's see here, Mesa. Let's put in B just for a hell of it, I think that one. So let's get out of the way. Alright, Volcano. I've never heard of Volcano before, by the way, so... What is Volcano? So here's what the map basically looks like. You're gonna have access to just the basic standard stuff here: power plant, refinery, barracks, and weapon factory apparently. So no base defenses. So this is probably just like under stuff like, you know, you don't have the base defenses to worry about. So very standard map is to sort of work with, I think. So Volcano is a map that features no base defenses for your team, but there are several routes to the enemy base and several key sniper points. The two sides share a common harvester point in the belly of the volcano, which is where many tank rushes will come. But because of the small area in which to maneuver, they can easily become bottlenecked. I'm guessing basically there's probably like, you know, a ground route that basically goes under the volcano then, where harvesters can basically go. As well as like, you know, your vehicles can go as well. If your vehicles are gonna get bottlenecked, it's not the greatest thing, by the way, just throw out there, so... This is probably like a, you know, a C-tier map that resolve that, but whatever. Alright, well that's basically like, you know, Renegade like map tier list, I guess, for me, because, you know, why not? At least somewhat remember, I think, some of these maps, and, you know, everyone's just like, you know, as you can guess as to what they basically are like, from my game experience. So, we'll save or download this one in a moment. I just want to get my, like, you know, stuff here to sort of like rely on. Vehicles, community rank. Very important by knowing the base type versus base, because it is possible to have different mode types in like this, like, you know, game. I play like capture and flag and stuff like that, basically, like, you know, C-map for example. So lots of different things you basically can play with, like, you know, Renegade, of course. Alright, well that's basically like, you know, a couple more tiers basically for Renegade here. I'll probably go for mission at some point, but that'll be in the future perhaps. Hope you guys basically enjoyed, and take care. I love the music basically that, you know, Frank actually did for this game for sure.